The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Monday, the 4th of May, 2026. We are live here at CHD TV. We're going to go to our first segment in just a second, but I want you all to stay tuned because some of you will remember Rebecca Charles came on the bus, talked about her beautiful daughter, Danielle, who was murdered in the hospital. And this is their words. Along with great many other people, it all said the same thing. She is going to be coming on with her attorney, Tricia Liindsey, to give us an update on where they are. So we're so excited to have them on because this subject is not spoken about as much as it should be. We're talking about the jabs the whole time. We are not talking about the people who were murdered in the hospitals, and so many were. So we're going to be going to that after the segment. But first up, we're going to bring on our General Counsel, Kim Mack Rosenberg for Children's Health Defense, and we're going to be talking about Katy Talento. So good morning, Kim. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Polly. Always a pleasure to be here.
Well, now, this Katy Talento, I'm going to ask you who she even is in a minute. But let's bring up this headline because a lot of discussion, particularly over the weekend, about her. So she's saying, I kept Robert F. Kennedy Jr. out of the West Wing. Now I owe him an apology. She's a former White House advisor. And her Substack is actually super long on this. But I want us to break it down a bit because I think she's getting not as much support as she probably would like for this. So, Kim, first of all, who even is she?
So she is an epidemiologist, Harvard-trained epidemiologist, and she worked not only in the first Trump White House, but she also had worked in Congress prior to that. So she has a long history, actually, and she discusses it in the article about vaccines and autism and not believing in a link between vaccines and autism. And she's now come out and said, as her Substack says, confessions of a, health policy priestess, as it were. And you're right, she's not getting, I think, the support that she expected. She's now, I believe, a practicing naturopath, not focusing on the epidemiology piece. She's had a career change. And is, in Virginia practicing naturopathy.
Yeah, so she's basically someone who's extremely pro-vaccine. She says she watched Vaxxed, and that helped. I mean, that's 10 years old, that movie. So she watched at one point and it made her mad. And now she's coming out saying, I owe him this apology. So what's really behind this? Do we know?
We don't know. We don't know, why she wrote this, why the timing is what it is. There's been a lot happening and continues to happen with respect to the COVID pandemic, the quote unquote pandemic. We saw last week, just about a week ago, the indictment of David Morens, who was Anthony Fauci's right-hand person. And he's been charged by the Department of Justice with conspiracy against the United States, with hiding documents. There are some pretty damning emails about how he was going to avoid FOIA requests, and he's learned how to do this and to send information to personal email accounts, not to the government email accounts. So that's in the news. And then and I'm not saying they're necessarily linked, but it is interesting timing-wise that Katy Talento's Substack then comes out. And I think that David Morens is not going to be the only person we see down the pike who is charged with crimes with respect to the pandemic and government conduct, the conduct of government employees during that. But she played a big role going back. We're now going back a decade or more in really trying to stop anyone from discussing at a high level the links between vaccines and autism and other harms from vaccines. And she even talks about the meeting that Anthony Fauci had with now Secretary Kennedy and others, and how that was purposefully held off-site at a location that would be not as high profile. So she was very deeply involved in all of this.
Yeah, but Kim, and this is a big question, is it not? I know I've got a cough. This is a big
I
question.
apologize.
This is hay fevery type symptoms for us all. Anyway, Kim, she says she kept him out of the West Wing. She did all this stuff, but who's the person that told her to do that in the first place?
That is the million-dollar question, Polly, isn't it? We don't know at this point who instructed her to keep him out. It doesn't sound like this was just her decision. It really, the way the whole Substack post reads, she was instructed to do that. And we don't know at this point who it was who instructed her to do that.
No. But overall, Kim, with this confession, first of all, I want to say to our people out there, and I'm not saying to our viewers, but just generally in our movement on social media, she is getting attacked. And I think we shouldn't be doing that, because I think it's good when someone comes out. We need more people to come out and say, look, I made a mistake. I didn't realize there was a connection between vaccines and autism, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think personally that attacking her is getting any of us anywhere. That's just my take. What do you say, Kim?
I agree with you. And frankly, at this point, there are people who are questioning whether it's sincere or not. Is this, I think Age of Autism ran a piece, is this a deep or a shallow apology was the headline on it. And I think it's early days, right? This just came out. So I don't think, if she's sincere, it's, again, early days. Let's give her an opportunity to go further than just this Substack post and see what she has to say. And, down the line, we can judge her sincerity or insincerity. But I'd like to believe that, for anyone, people have changes of heart, right? I mean, I was a person who vaccinated my child when he was young, and I would not make that same choice now. I've learned other things. People learn things, people evolve, and I'd like to give people the grace to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Kim, I was so bad, so pro-vaccine that I wanted to report one of my friends to Child Protective Services because she was taking her unvaccinated child to India for the whole of the summer. And I genuinely thought that child was in severe danger. But that's how bad I was. So people do change. And now look at me, everyone. But I had to learn from injury. But yeah, so they do change. But let's just talk about in general, though. Good things are happening. I know people are very despondent at the moment, but people are coming out and they're speaking. The baddies are slowly being caught to a degree. So, because you're head of our legal. So tell us how things are. Should people be happy about the way things are going under the circumstances?
I think there are a lot of good things happening. We have our lawsuit against the American Academy of Pediatrics accusing them under the RICO statute, the federal racketeering statute. That is shedding so much light on the conduct of AAP and other organizations. That is, to me, a great complaint. If anyone wants to get a good primer on the conduct of AAP, everything is cited in that complaint. We're very proud of that at CHD. But there are other cases too. There are the cases against the State Department of Health in New York against Commissioner McDonald. We have a case that's CHD against McDonald where we're trying to restore the religious exemption in New York State. And we're just showing how arbitrary it is and how in violation of the federal constitution it is to not have a religious exemption particularly where you have a medical exemption. But we also have cases challenging the medical exemption. We have Sarah Doe, who, Polly, I know you've had on several times, who's able to go back to school now because a judge saw that the way her district was treating her, where she had 7 medical exemptions saying she can't get a hepatitis B vaccine, that it could kill her. And I mean, Sarah is she is so articulate and so wonderful. And we have other people speaking out about this. There is a case going up in West Virginia this month regarding the religious exemption in that state. And so there are positive things happening all over the country. The fight continues. It's not as if everything's going to change overnight, but there are good things happening, and CHD and other organizations are out there fighting the really good fight to make these changes happen and to educate. You know, when we go back to the AAP, there's the AAP suit against Secretary Kennedy that was filed in federal district court in Massachusetts, in Boston. And we've tried to intervene in that case, and we are keeping fighting forward in that case as well, and challenging the judge's denial of our motion to intervene. So we're not giving up, and we are having new lawsuits challenging things all the time. I recently spoke in Massachusetts at an event, and as I was getting ready for that event, I pulled together on one slide all of CHD's cases, and there are 27 active cases we have, and that's not counting EMR. So CHD is really busy. Other organizations are really busy fighting this fight. And we do things in other venues too. We do things through advocacy, and we file citizen petitions challenging issues. And we are going to continue to do that. We're always looking for new avenues to really hold people accountable.
Kim, over the week, you know, I do a show every Sunday with Mary Holland. Somebody actually said to me, I enjoy listening to your show with Mary, but can you just like stop talking about the COVID? It's like kind of boring now. Now, and I'm bringing this up for a reason, because we've got a story coming on afterwards. Yes, I'm sure it is kind of boring to some of you viewers, but it is imperative that we do not stop talking about what happened during COVID, and especially the hospital protocol. We're not even covering that as we should do. But Kim, what other reasons is it important legally as well that we fight this? Because they're going to try it again. We're going to have another pandemic coming at some point with another fake virus. They're already doing like show trials of it in Europe with the World Health Organization. So can you tell our people, or tell our audience, please, why it is imperative that we continue to talk about COVID?
Sure. I think it's so important because there are lessons to be learned and continue to be learned. And legally, the PrEP Act is still in place. And that is the federal law that allowed a lot of what happened during the pandemic to happen, right? It's the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act. And it's been around since, I think, 2005. But it was really used as just a hammer during COVID. It allows the use of these, emergency use authorized measures, which include the COVID vaccines, but also the use of remdesivir and the use of ventilators, without liability for the manufacturers and for the government. So there are very few loopholes in the PrEP Act. We are challenging it here at CHD through the Watts case and through other measures, the McInish case. If you are injured by one of those countermeasures, you essentially are without recourse. And people need to be aware of that, because the same thing is going to happen when the next so-called pandemic or emergency comes down the pike. So, we talk a lot, Holly, about the vaccine injury compensation program and vaccines that are on the childhood vaccination schedule and the real flaws and issues with that program. The countermeasure injury compensation program is even worse. It's essentially kind of a black hole that your claim goes into. You have to file within a year. So there's a very short window of filing. The 3 years for the VICP is bad enough, but this is 1 year from the date of injury. And so if you miss that window, you miss that window. It's only for quote unquote serious injuries, and they have a very limited definition of what is a serious or significant injury, and that's what the McInish case is challenging. Those are individuals who were seriously injured, but not fitting the definition of the PrEP Act. And then so few of those cases are even compensated. And what you get compensated for isn't what you would think you may get compensated for. There are occasionally large rewards, but if you are a person who has insurance, your insurance has covered you. So they don't pay you back for what your insurance covered. You may get paid back for co-pays and deductibles, They only cover very traditional allopathic treatments. So if you have a condition, and many people who were injured have conditions that are resistant to traditional measures and they're trying other things to get relief, those aren't covered. It's sort of the Medicaid of injury compensation programs. It's really the payer of last resort. So even when people do get compensated, those awards are very small in most cases. And the vast majority of cases haven't been addressed by the program yet. They're just sitting there. And you can come out of that program as you can in the VICP after a number of days and sue. But again, it's a difficult case to bring. And you're going to hear from Tricia, Liindsey, and Rebecca Charles in a few minutes about that. So people need to be aware that this is history capable of repeating itself. And, that law the PrEP Act has not gone away. So people just need to understand that that can be used again and that it's very troubling.
Yeah, and Kim, this is a good time. We've got a few minutes left, but let's talk about our Children's Health Defence movie that's coming out on the 30th of June, as in it's theatre release on the 30th of June. Kim Mack Rosenberg is in the movie. But this is very important that people see this. But everybody needs to get their tickets in the next couple of weeks because the theatres will not go ahead if we don't buy a certain amount of tickets. So go to the link that Lou will put into the show notes, see where the theatre is near you and get your tickets. If the theatre does not tip, then you'll get your money back. I'm going to be at the Cedar Park one in Austin. So anyone in the Austin area, come. My whole family are going to be there. So we're very excited to meet as many people as possible. Where are you going to be, Kim?
I have to figure out where I'm going to be because I'm constantly in the air, but I'm going to find the theater closest to me and definitely get a ticket.
Yeah, it's there's 120 theatres booked for that night. Now, the reason why it's important, you might say, well, I don't have any contacts with the military. Why would I even care? You need to watch this film because what happens in the military generally comes out to us, the civilians, as well. But the reason why it's called Duty to Disobey, Kim, can you tell them about that briefly? Because it's so important everybody understands why this film is called Duty to Disobey.
Right. So our military service members have a duty to disobey unlawful acts. And, the question is whether what the government did to those military service members with respect to COVID vaccinations was lawful. I mean, they were treated, to say they were treated badly or poorly is an understatement. You need to see this film to see how these individuals were treated and how their religious rights and their if they had medical issues, how those people were mistreated. And there's physical violence against them. There are repercussions to their military careers and how many were discharged improperly, which is a stain on their record forever and impacts their ability to work in civilian life as well. And these are people who lay their lives on the line every day for this country. And for them to be treated this way is really horrific. And then we've seen so many of the military members who were forced to get vaccinated suffer, as we saw in the civilian population, to have terrible, terrible injuries to themselves. And so we're really depleting the security of our country by what we did here. And we're dissuading people of particularly strong religious convictions from joining the military, because the military, historically, it's been very difficult to get any sort of religious exemption, and even medical exemptions are challenging in the military. And we actually have a lawsuit against the Department of Defense with respect to religious exemptions that's ongoing now at CHD against HEGSETH.
Yeah, well, I know, exactly. And I'm so glad. Military is very, very special to Children's Health Defence. We have an amazing military chapter as well, headed up by Pam Long. She's in the movie a lot as well. But it's, again, really important we all see this film because we actually have a problem, which you'll see at the end of the film. And the problem is the national security problem, because these people, they love the military, but they will not let their children go in the military. Not one of them, as it stands now. So we have to force change in the military. Getting rid of the flu vaccine is fantastic, or making it not mandatory. Yes. But anthrax next, please, and the list goes on.
Well, yes, and and multiple vaccines, in a day, if you're not up to date when you enter the military. And Holly, I agree with you. I know many people who have themselves served who say, I don't want my children to enter the military.
Be treated like lab rats is what
Yeah.
they use. So yes, people, you will enjoy this. So again, go and get your tickets, dutytodisobeyfilm.com, and we'll talk about it more after as we go through the week. But Kim, Mack Rosenberg, thank you so much for being on this morning, updating us on everything and talking about Katy Talento. We really appreciate you being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, everybody. So now we're going to bring on Rebecca Charles and Tricia Liindsey. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Polly. Thank you for having us here.
Yes, well,
Good morning.
Morning, Tricia. Thank you for being here. So we're just going to remind the people a little bit about this story because it's been some time since you did that story on the bus. So your beautiful daughter, Danielle, there she is, was killed by hospital protocols. She was 28 years old, and very similar story to many that we've heard. And there you are talking about it. I know it's really difficult, so I'm a little bit hesitant here. It's very difficult for you to talk about this, Rebecca, because the pain. But I think really just like I say, it was just a typical hospital protocol killing that we heard thousands of these stories. But she had Down syndrome, and you were.
No.
She didn't.
No.
I apologize.
No. Danielle lost oxygen during delivery. So my first, the doctors did it at birth, yeah.
Okay, so can you talk as a mother a bit through what happened?
Well, Danielle, she was a lovely child, happy, very healthy, hardly ever get sick. And 2020, she didn't get sick. 2021, she contacted it from the aide who was working with her, and she started with a fever. By the weekend, she got worse, and we treated her at home. So the fever, day 7 now, the fever is gone, but she had this cough that she kept, an unusual cough, and I got scared. I was worried about it, so I took her to the I called my neighbor who's a doctor who's affiliated with the hospital Northwell Health in Glen Cove, and he said, okay, I'll call you in, I'll get special permission so I could go with her. So I'm thinking I'm protected, I'd be okay with Danielle. So Danielle, everything in her records show it's so contradictory. She had clear lungs, normal blood pressure, normal EKG, everything was normal, no fevers, oxygen was 93, of course she was nervous. And then the medical records, now that we're going through it, said completely a contradictory story, that Danielle now have hypoxia, she has sepsis, COVID pneumonia, even with the physical exam. So that's the first part going through the records that I see that, oh my God, this was blatant lies. How could they get away with this?
Yeah, and Tricia, let's bring you on as well, because how did you get involved in this case?
Well, I was contacted by Graham Brownstein, who I guess became involved with the case at some point in time. Rebecca filed pro se in 2024, and the case was in jeopardy of being dismissed completely because of an estate capacity matter. She didn't have capacity to sue on behalf of the estate. And so the judge had proposed a dismissal, but it was based upon purely procedural grounds. And so the matter, the judgment had come down, or actually it had not been issued, but the judge proposed it. And so with that, I was contacted by Graham, who asked me if I would take on this case. And when initially I said no, because I was inundated with work. But after hearing the story and learning about what took place, I couldn't say no, because we all knew. You just had a conversation with Kim Mack Rosenberg and talking about how important it is to keep these matters going. And there are so many cases that are still pending. And with the hospital protocols and the deaths that occurred, how could I say no, right? Because this is just another case, and it's so egregious. And you go through the medical records, when you hear the full story, when you see what took place, it is so egregious. And the defendants have to answer. And so Rebecca's case, she filed, and it was so impressive that she was able to get the case to that point. She named 43 defendants, including Northwell Health. And so what was happening was purely procedural. It wasn't on the merits. And so it was the perfect time to step in to save the case. And so her not having legal representation was the problem. And after searching and speaking to numerous attorneys, she was not able to find someone that would take the case. And after I heard it, I understood why they wouldn't take it or why they did not take it. It's the same thing that took place during COVID, right? You had all this corruption and, attorneys who didn't want to challenge the system or didn't believe in what we were saying was happening within the hospitals and healthcare. And so once I saw it, once I heard the details, I recognized it, knew it, being involved with COVID, during the peak of what was happening during the vaccines and things of that nature, the lockdowns. And so once I heard it, I knew what we had to do. And so my stepping in cured the defect. And so I took on the case, retained it, filed a motion with the court. But afterwards, the court pretty much issued a judgment. So we filed a motion to amend the complaint, and it was fully briefed. We filed that in April. And while the motion was sitting pending, we filed it in March, I'm sorry. While the motion was sitting and pending, the defendants filed a proposed judgment with the court. And the court issued the judgment, ruled on the judgment, granted their proposal, and that was to issue a final judgment dismissing 38 of the 43 defendants. But it was a procedural irregularity. It didn't make sense that while there is a pending motion for leave to amend the complaint, curing the procedural defect upon which the court issued its recommendation or its proposal on, after that is cured, the court ignored our motion and granted their judgment, dismissing the 38 defendants, but yet not ruling on our motion for leave. So we filed a reply affirmation, and we replied. I filed a letter to the court asking them to take a look at what they had done, what the judge had done, and to pretty much, vacate the judgment. I'm waiting on a response for that, but in the meantime, we have filed a notice of appeal to preserve Rebecca's appellate rights, and we are exploring other avenues. We have a number of avenues that we can take in order to revive to bring back in the 38 defendants, because now the original complaint has been expanded. We have new theories, we've expanded it, and it's much more robust than what Rebecca filed initially. She did a great job, but of course, being a pro se, and especially with something so complicated as this, and we're dealing with 43 defendants, legal counsel coming in takes it to another level. And so that's what we have done. And so we are confident that we're going to prevail, and the new complaint will be filed, and the 38 defendants will be brought back in. And so we'll be back to the original, which is now 42, because one of the defendants have passed away. And so that's where we are right now. That is where we are.
Tricia, and when we went out on the bus, we did not expect these COVID hospital protocol deaths, and they came in way more than the vaccine injury and death. So I fear that countless people have been murdered across this country and maybe around the world from the hospital protocols, and yet nothing is being done outside of what you're doing, and that's a mum that had to just get out there and fight for the death of her daughter. What happened to Danielle was barbaric.
It absolutely was. It absolutely was. And it was murder. When you look at the records, it's astounding. And more is going to come out during discovery. We have depositions lined up between May and starting in late May into June and possibly in the beginning of July. But much more is going to come out. And it's really, really egregious what happened. It is actually murder. And so it is so important to keep these cases alive. And you're right when you say that there are there's so many people that went through this that we don't know of, that's not fighting, that doesn't know how to fight, that cannot find legal counsel to fight, right? And then you have more cases than you do have legal counsel that can take the cases because they're so complicated. And when you're talking about going up against 43 defendants, being Northwell Health being one, and these doctors are all connected to that, they have a wheelhouse, they have a treasure chest behind them, right? And depositions, we know, is very costly. Litigation is very costly. And so it's understandable that there are a number of defendants, number of people out there, victims that have lost family members that are not getting the justice they deserve. And that's why we believe that this case is very important, as is every other case that is being litigated, because it's not just for Rebecca, it's not just for Danielle, but it's for everyone who has suffered this as well. We fight for everyone.
And it gave them, I believe, the narrative to say it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, they're all dying in hospital. They weren't. I don't know anybody that died of COVID at home. Do you viewers know anyone that died at home of COVID? No. They were
No.
taken into hospital and they were murdered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so bad to the point where people don't want to go to hospitals anymore for anything. There are people who are terrified to go to hospitals because they know what occurs in the hospitals. So where have we gone to as a society, where the people that have taken an oath to take care of us, right, and to serve us as patients in the hospital and to take care of us and to pretty much bring us back to health? No, it's become a death camp. It's become a place where you go to die, and that's unfortunate. In the great United States of America, with trillions of dollars passing through our healthcare system, what has happened?
Yeah, Tricia, well said. Rebecca, and this, I know it's hard, but I think it's really important from all the stories that we've heard. It wasn't just that they medically killed them, they mentally abused them. They separated the parents from their children, or people with special needs were separated from the people they trust the most. The mental abuse, I don't know how human beings can treat other human beings like that. That's what happened.
I just don't know. I mean, my daughter, she was always scared of being alone. And what they did, they tricked me because I started to get really sick in the hospital. And they tricked me. And I asked, could I just go home, take a shower? I'm 8 minutes away, and then I'll come back in. And the nurse said, yeah, you could go. As soon as I left, it was about around 6 o'clock. 2 hours later, I got a phone call saying I cannot come back on the grounds of the hospital. I will be removed. By force. So now my daughter is there. My husband was bringing us food, bringing us clothing, bringing us everything. And then I sent flowers, balloons for her. They refused it. They said nothing could go up in the ICU now. Then I sent her iPad. Nothing could go. I asked, could I see her? Could I speak to her? No, the iPad in the hospital is not working conveniently. Then I got a phone call that they had to tie Danielle to the bed. Now, they violated even the ADA rights for special needs person by leaving her alone, tying her to the bed. And when they got me out, that's when they start inducing her with more medication. Precedex, before she even went on the ventilator, they were already prepping her for the ventilator because they got me out of the hospital. Then by 2 days later, they kept calling and saying she needs to go on the ventilator. This was something they told me too. And I said, she's not going on the ventilator. She's not going on the ventilator. And on Saturday morning, in order for them to put her on the ventilator and justify putting her, they shot my daughter with morphine, 1 mgs at 9:36 a.m. Another shot of morphine injection at 9:41 a.m. Remdesivir before that. Fentanyl. 250 mgs of fentanyl, 2,500 mgs of fentanyl. I can't even pronounce the name. It's such a long drug. So they dropped her oxygen level in order to justify it. I mean, is this the medical system we want to belong to? I have no more children. Daniel was my only child. People say, why you keep doing this? It's because I don't want anybody else to go through it. And if this is the most trusted place in the whole wide world, that when you're sick, you're going for care. You're going for them to take care of you, to treat you. You're expecting compassion. You're expecting someone to hold your hand. You're expecting someone to say, Mom, don't worry. She's going to get better. She's coming home. Don't worry. I never once, not one of the 44, ever said to me, don't worry. She's going to get better. Don't worry. Instead, the doctor said to me, oh, I have nightmares about your daughter. Ah, what? Oh, and the other thing, with all the drugs that they give Danielle, 2 days after she was on the ventilator, my daughter got a heart attack. And they never called me. They never called me. So as you know, I hired Ralph Laringo to get Ivermectin for her. The court said to immediately administer it. It was in the legal department back and forth. When I came back to the hospital, they said to me, oh, her liver enzymes is going up because of the ivermectin. And I had asked Dr. Ramanu before, I said, when I found out about about remdesivir, I said, do not give it to her. He said, oh, she already had 10. Like very casually. They knew exactly what they were doing to Danielle. I had remarks to me like, do you pray? Like, like, how do you say things like that? I never experienced in my life this cold, callous, inhuman behavior by doctors and nurses.
Yeah, Tricia, what happened to I can't, I'm the same as you. I can't get my head around what happened to human beings treating human beings like that. And hearing the story of Danielle, I mean, I'm a mother of a 30-year-old man with autism who I would never want to be in hospital. We're afraid to ever take our special needs children or adults into a hospital, and with good reason. What happened to these people that they did this to Danielle, and they took the mother away from? She was crying, "Mummy, I remember your interview on the bus. Don't leave me."
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I said it's egregious. It's really egregious, and it's barbaric, and it's criminal. To be honest with you, it's literally medical kidnapping, because that's what literally happened. They tricked. It was fraud. It was fraudulent inducement, and there are a number. And if you look at the amended complaint, we have expanded it. But fraud is one of the major theories that we are using to keep this case, revive it, and to keep it from away from the PrEP Act immunity, and not having that to be implicated to shut down the case, as it's done in so many other instances. So we are confident that the theories that we have raised and that we have alleged in the new expanded complaint will survive the PrEP Act, because these people really need to be brought to the carpet. They need to be held accountable. Their licenses needs to be stripped. They need to pay in multiple ways, and we need to stop this, and we need to hold them accountable, each and every single one of them, the ones who administered the medications, the one who ordered it, and the ones who stood by and just allowed it to be. They're all responsible, and so that's what we're doing.
And so if people are watching now and they're like, this happened to my son, my brother, my mom, my dad, which we know so many, what do they do? They don't know what to do. I mean, I'm not saying thousands of people should be contacting you, because I know you, but there needs to be something for everybody to be able to say, this happened. They all need to be held accountable.
They do. They need to be held accountable, and they need to consider suing the entities that their loved ones were that their loved ones went to seek care, right, and to get better. They really do. Because if we don't hold them accountable, if we back up and allow it, this is only going to continue. They're gearing up for the next round, and all of this is a test to see what people will do, how we're going to react. If we're just going to lay down and allow them to take our loved ones, to kill them, to destroy our lives, to mentally and emotionally, psychologically, physically, financially strip us of everything that we have. We can't allow that. And so if everyone stands up, and speaks out, they cannot bar us all off. Yes, do they have a treasure chest? Absolutely. But that treasure chest also depends upon the public. And so we need to do something about that. And everyone has a voice. Just find someone who can advocate for you and speak up, and we'll stand up.
Yeah,
Come together with a bunch of other patients that were in the hospital. If you can't do it by yourself, find other members of the community that also went through it. They're there. They're out there. And come together.
And to the people that did this to Danielle and to so many, there is time for you to repent. Come out now, tell your story, do the right thing, so that we can put closure on this, because
Absolutely.
Because they count us. All right, Rebecca, what's the outcome you want from this?
I I want laws to, well, first, I want them all to be held responsible for what they did. I want my day in court. I don't want a settlement. And this is why this case is costing a lot, because we don't want a settlement. We have Free Now Foundation who is fundraising for the case because it's very expensive. I want laws to be changed. I want doctors to be held accountable. You're talking about a whole hospital system that no one said to me, Mommy, you need to do this, or get her out, or even alerted, even the pharmacists, they kept overriding all the medical alerts so they could keep drugging her. For people who knows George Floyd, and I keep bringing up George Floyd had 11 NGs of fentanyl in his system when he died. My daughter was pumped full of fentanyl, that hers was 53 NGs, 5 times the dose to kill you. Is this a hospital? You know, and legally, I can't say certain things I'd like to say, but common sense will tell you what they were doing. What they were doing. They were not trying to save my daughter. My daughter was a cash cow for them. They saw, okay, she's on Medicaid. She have Cigna PPO. This is how much money we could get. Because as soon as she went in, they said she had hypoxia against everything, against all her normal vitals. They say she had hypoxia and sepsis. That was her admission record. But that is what happened when she died, because she got all of that in the hospital. She went in normal, multiple organ failure, kidney damage, and then COVID, the last stamp for their last money they're going to get, their reward. I call it a bounty. They had a bounty on my daughter's head, and they had a bounty on Americans' head. Whoever they could make the money from, you are now a cash cow. And our government paid for it. Our government paid for it. And I could say one thing. I don't know how you could put a PrEP Act law that gives another person the right to kill you. Or even the CEO of Northwell Health said, oh, if you go on a ventilator, 80% chance you're going to die. So then you're playing Russian roulette with people's lives on a ventilator? If I did that, I would be in jail right away. None of us could get away with that. None of us.
Well, both of you, please keep us updated, and anything that we can do to help. Do you have a GoFundMe or anything like that?
Well, we have Free Now Foundation. I'll send a link to you. It's also in my Substack to help fundraise for the case with Alex Meyer. So we would really appreciate, like I said, if everyone comes in and support $5, $10, $20, whatever you could afford, you know, just to help this case through, because it will help the future generation.
Well, again, we're so sorry for the loss of your beautiful daughter. And Tricia, I can't thank you enough for fighting this for us. Thank you so much for all that you do. Truly amazing.
Thank you to you all for keeping this going as well.
Yeah.
CHD is amazing. Thank you. Thank you for having us and just bringing light and keeping the attention on this case. We appreciate it greatly.
Anytime. You both are very welcome on CHD TV. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tricia.
All right, everyone. Now we are going to go to another story, but we'll see. Michael Kane, we'll see you tomorrow morning on Good Morning CHD TV.
My name is Richard Emmett Board.
And this is about your wife.
Yes, it is.
And the fact that she survived the hospital protocol
Yes.
situation. All right, let's go back. First of all, did your wife take the COVID shot?
No. When COVID first hit, we discussed taking it because at our age we figured we would pass away from the COVID. But with a little bit of watching the news and some things that we heard, we decided that we would take our chances with the COVID because we didn't like what we was hearing about the, the vaccination.
Right, okay. So what led to the situation where she had to go to hospital?
Well, I still work as a contractor, and we had wore the masks and done everything because they played on your sympathy. Well, nobody wants to kill their grandparents, which we didn't have any, but we had a lot of elderly neighbors that we liked, so we was playing the game, so to speak. And it was probably right at a year in, we was working for a neighbor, me and the guy that I work with, and he was sick, and it just happened to be the COVID. And we ended up getting it, both of us. I had it worse than he did, But then I give it to my wife, and she had it way worse than I did. She got the pneumonia from it. I was sick for 2 days, Thursday afternoon to Saturday at noon, and other than being weak, I was over it. But she got the pneumonia, and this kept going downhill and downhill. And it was in November, because she was tested on the Sunday before deer season come in, and she tested positive, and we thought we was lucky in getting her into the Spencer Hospital for the infusion, and we did. And I expected to bring her home, but they didn't. They admitted her. Well, I was still weak and sick. I wasn't fevered. I was over the COVID, but I still had the effects from it. And of course, she was in the hospital and wasn't allowed to visit her or nothing. But I talked to her on the phone, and my son got to calling and asking what she was on. And she said Remdesivir. And I kind of got ahead of the story a little bit. When the doctor come in after she had been admitted, he asked her 2 questions. Did you have the shots? And she said no. And then he drew a picture of the thing that she had, and then he said, I suppose you've got religion. And she said, yes, I do. What did that have anything to do with it? She was sick with pneumonia. And after that, he was in like a spacesuit with an oxygen pack on his back, full helmet. She never did get to see his face, but he was telling her about how he was working on 30 people or 20 people in the COVID ward at the Spencer Hospital, and he was going to put her on a ventilator. And she said, you're not putting me on a ventilator. And he said, yes, I am. Well, she said, no, you're not. And we know she had 2 doses of Remdesivir. And my son called her and told her not to take that anymore. So she refused that. Well, that made the doctor mad. And he wrote up on the board what he was going to put her on, and I think it was illuminant. And I think, I don't know, I never seen it, but I'm pretty sure that's what they called it. But it was another form of Remdesivir. And he said, Mom, don't you take that. So the first time they come in to give her a dose, she said, what is that? And the woman told her. She said, my son said not to take that. And she said, you're refusing that? She said, yes, I am. And she took it over and throwed it in the trash can. And of course, the doctor was pretty irate about that. Now, this went on from Monday evening to Thursday afternoon, because Thursday morning my son called me and he said, are you ready to bring Mom out of the hospital? And I said, that's a pretty odd thing to hear over the phone. And I said, well, I guess if that's what we're going to do, I'm ready. He said, I'm on my way now to get medicine for her at the house. And he said, we're going to take her out of there.
Good for him.
Yeah, so we went up there. We both drove because he never got the COVID. And he said, you keep the car warm, I'll go in and get her. He had been in contact with the hospital and them about coming, and they knew who he was. He's 6'3" and weighs about 280, and he's an iron worker at the time.
A what?
An iron worker. Builds bridges and whatever else. So anyway, he went in and they said, are you Eric Board? And he said, yes. And he said, I'm here to get my mom. And she said, I'll be with you in just a second. And he had a mask on, and they took him up to the ward. And he went in, and the doctor would not let anybody in that room wheel her out. He said, none of my staff is going to take her out. And he looked at my wife and he said, you won't live to get home. He said, you might not live to get out of the parking lot. And Eric said, well, that won't be a problem. He said, I'll wheel her out. He took their wheelchair, wheeled her out to the car, and we headed for the house.
Good for him.
And when we got there, her oxygen level was 84. And at midnight that night, we had an oxygen concentrator at the house. We had medicine, and we began to work on her and give her the good stuff, not Remdesivir, I'm sorry. We gave her Ivermectin and some other treatments that we had. And it took the better part of a month to get her back. But at one time in the first week after we got her back, her oxygen level went down to 59 at 3 o'clock in the morning. And my son said, what are we going to do? Put her back in the hospital? I said, no. So, excuse me. We kind of went to working with her and got her to breathe in deeper. And we got her oxygen level to come back up some. So we had a lot of help. My niece and nephew, my son took 14 days off from work. And I got to do the cooking and the cleaning, and he was the nurse. And he took care of my wife and brought her back.
It's an amazing story.
So she's lived about 2 years.
And how is she doing today?
She's been diagnosed with long COVID. She goes to a lung doctor. She has trouble with her lungs, but she's still in pretty good shape. I mean, she's 71, I'm 72. We got the problems that 71 and 72-year-old people have.
Well, your son sounds amazing.
He is.
Yeah, he is. Been brought up good.
He's a good son.
Well done, both of you, for saving her.
Well, you know, I took her for the infusion. We thought that would help her. If I had it to do over again, I'd have never took her. But I'm not good at taking care of pneumonia either. So, you know, I don't think they doctored her for the pneumonia. I don't know what the infusion was supposed to do, but the COVID was pretty well over with when I got her there. It was the pneumonia that was killing her. Of course, she had trouble with her lungs up through the years because her mom and dad both smoked. She never did, but she was around secondhand smoke. So she had some lung problems, but that sure didn't help it because they got a lot worse after that took place.
Is there anything else you want to tell everybody?
Well, from everything that I've seen and witnessed from the news, and of course everything you see you can't believe, but I think Fauci and that whole outfit ought to be put in prison for what they done. They killed millions of people worldwide. And if they'd have used that there, I can't think of names very well, you have to forgive me, but what did I say it was a little bit ago?
Are you talking about Fauci?
Huh?
You were talking about Fauci?
Well, yeah.
The Ivermectin you were talking about?
We used, for the medicine that we used was the one that they call it a horse wormer.
Ivermectin.
Yeah,
Ivermectin.
we used it, and there was another name of a medicine that was 9 cents a dose, and they wouldn't let them use it, and I believe that would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. What was it? Hydrochloroquine, yes.
Or quercetin, there's so many.
Yeah.
So many good things. Well, she's alive, and that's thanks to you and your amazing son. And we're so grateful for you coming all this way and sitting and telling us the story. Thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.